everybody, it's time for another weekly reading vlog. We are reading the highest rated nonfiction book on my TBR this week, and we are going to look at the weekly TBR. So our quote is, "You is kind, you is smart, you is important," from Catherine Stockett. So that's, you are all those things. Believe you're all those things, and it will get you great places. So the first book I might be able to get to today. I don't know, it depends how long the essay or story in here is. But this is the Singular 14th Society's Yuletide Guide to High Strangeness, artwork by Emily Whalen, forward by Joshua Cutchin. I've not gotten to this book in like 2 days. But this is taking people's paranormal experiences seeing cryptids, and comparing them to old mythology and ones that happen around this time of year, like Krampus and aliens, just different elves, gremlins, those kind of things. Next, a lot more serious. This is our main focus of the week, and that is The Only Plane in the Sky, An Oral History of 9/11 by Garrett M. Graff. So I'm going to read the back here for y'all. Held as remarkable, incredibly evocative, and compelling, an oral history at its finest, Garrett M. Graff's The Only Plane in the Sky is the most vivid account of the September 11th attacks yet. Comprised of never-before-published transcripts, recently declassified documents, and original interviews and stories from nearly 500 government officials, first responders, witnesses, survivors, friends, and family members. Here's a profound and searing portrait of humanity on a day that changed the course of history and all of our lives. I am reading this on ebook, and yes, so this has been the focus. I think like 10%, I think it was actually 12% into the book. Next, we have my mood read. It is about pilgrims, so November fitting. This is Beheld by Tarsha Nesbitt. This one, I think this is a perfect little description. This is a riveting story of a stranger's arrival in the fledgling colony of Plymouth, Massachusetts, and a crime that shakes the divided community to its core. So, a murder mystery taking place in the 1600s, 1630 in Plymouth Colony, Massachusetts. This was in the 100 Notable Books of 2020 by the New York Book Review, and I am 25% of the way into this one. I will be starting a new ebook tonight, so we will go into what it's about later, but The White Queen by Philippa Gregory. I have seen the show. I loved the show, might I say. It's a Starz original. I do have these TV versions because the first book in the series I ordered and didn't realize I got the TV version, so just to have them all match. I did love that first book in the series, The Lady of the Rivers, and The White Queen is next. A little blurb before we read the big one later. 3 different yet equally relentless women who will scheme, manipulate, and seduce their way onto the English throne. And that is the weekly TBR. I read 40 pages and The Only Plane in the Sky, getting me to 22%, and the Pentagon just got hit. All this stuff in Washington is kind of new for me, because a lot of times online, because in New York there's so many eyewitnesses, but this we're getting from like actual government people. And when we go through my notes, which we're getting it out, we will go into like why this has me like so freaked out. It's like, I mean, it was like a first for a lot of things. 54 today, chapter 9. And actually, so with the first plane, you know, it gets hijacked. And but before they know that, the air traffic control, they're like, okay, is our microphone not working? They're like, why is that? Why can they not hear us? So he goes and he's like, okay, Delta, can you hear me? And Delta's like, yeah, we can hear you. So then we have another United, which will eventually be the plane that hits the South Tower, which I think is 11? Flight 11. The numbers are all gonna be, but the one that hits the South Tower is the one that, so far before like reading this, is the one that freaks me out. Like, it descended so fast, like that plane almost like disintegrated. It was going so fast because it's like against the laws of physics to be going that fast at that low of a level. The people, and it was like people were throwing up everywhere. It was really bad. But okay. So all of them are really bad, obviously, but they are, so that flight is we heard a suspicious transmission on our departure from Boston. Sounds like someone keyed the mic and said, everyone stay in your seats. Little do they know that same thing is about to happen to their own plane. And then this, I knew about this call before. So like Brian Sweeney was, United 175. He called his wife saying that he loved her and that things didn't look too good on the plane. It was so emotional. I cannot listen to these things. Like, I could not listen to the actual tapes. Like, when I watch people's 9/11 like stories, like people telling their stories, I get angry, I get sad. I haven't got angry yet, but I'm sure that'll happen. So on this day, the military was doing training for if there was basically nuclear war. And when at one of these not call centers, but like one of these military centers, this guy comes in, he's like, the World Trade Center got hit by a plane. He's like, if this is part of the test, you need to say it's part of the test. He's like, it's not. It really got hit. So they were doing all this, and it says, at 9:24 a.m., the fighters at Langley Air Force Base were scrambled initially, not realizing the threat they were facing. The fighters were sent east towards the Atlantic Ocean, following standard policies intended to intercept incoming Russian bombers. I'm like, did they think Russia, like, was doing this? Not sure. Chapter 11, this is a popular quote. Only a single stairway in the South Tower, stairwell A, survived the crash. Fewer than 20 people would escape from the impact zone or above. Another popular was about the firefighters. So one of the firemen from Rescue 1 looked up and said, we may not live through today. We looked at him, we looked at each other, we said, you're right. And they all took time to shake their hands, saying they hope they'll see the other later. And I'm just like, yeah, emotional. And then ultimately 60 of the fire department of New York personnel killed on 9/11 were supposed to be off duty that morning. So, I mean, yeah, there was this one instance saying that the roads were so rough going into the city. And I'm like, is it because so many people were just going to help? Like, or were they rough because there was debris on the roads? I'm not sure what they meant there. And then this one, so, the guy who is like supposed to keep everything calm and collected with the president, the only other time where in his career that he thought was the most serious was, I'd been acting chief of staff to President George H. and I think this is Andy Card talking, but to President George H.W. Bush when he threw up on the Japanese prime minister. I was all business in that moment. I'm like, what? I have never heard that story. Imagine if that happened today. Imagine. And yes, we actually hear, so, you know, George W. Bush was like out of school reading to kids when he found out about the attacks. And I've always been so interested to hear from the kids that were in that room, that were in that classroom with him. I've always been interested for their perspective, and we do get that in this book. But yeah, this is all so crazy. Like, they're like, we gotta get out of here, we gotta get in the air because this school could be next. And thinking of that, just a plane like hitting an elementary school, but I'm just picturing, they're like, come on, we gotta go. Like, the way this plane, when Air Force One took off, it was like a rocket taking off. Like, they were straight up, like, the engines were on when the president got there because they were like, we gotta get going, because it's usually a big no-no having the engines on when they're boarding, because I mean, you don't want anybody to get thrown in the engine, I guess. But the lamps were shaking on the plane when it took off, and one of the media people, she was like, I thought we might need oxygen masks by just how straight up the plane took off, how fast it took off, because it's a 747. That's a big chunky plane. I was gonna say boy, but the 747 is the queen of the sky. But yeah, I thought this quote was kind of funny coming from George Bush. Soon after we got on board, you'll see. I see the president pop out of the cabin. He's heading down the aisle. He says, okay, boys, this is what they pay us for. Like, yeah. Then a popular, I see this one quite a lot. Senator Tom Daschle, a Democrat from South Dakota, Senate Majority Leader. So Senator John Glenn, a dear friend, came by. I said, did you see that? A pilot flew into the World Trade Center. He said, pilots don't fly into buildings. That wasn't a pilot. And then this is a popular one because this is when I start to get freaked out. They see there's a plane about 5 minutes outside of DC. It's going at 500 miles per hour. They're thinking the White House is the next target, and this is the plane that ends up hitting the Pentagon. But everybody's like, we gotta get out of here. Like, somebody comes, he's like, run for your lives, we're next. And so, you know, we see people going into the bunker. And it was curious what the bunker looked like. There was a picture included, but they're evacuating the White House. And that just freaks me out, because that's like the symbol of our nation, you know, that's like where the president lives. Like, it's bad if they're under threat. So, Christine Limerick, a housekeeper. Yeah, I was wondering, I was like, do all these people, like the housekeepers and all just the staff of the White House, like the normal people, you know, like I guess civilian stuff, did they know? I was like, did they know all this was happening? But okay, so Christine Limerick, housekeeper, White House. The look on the faces of Secret Service agents who were told that they had to stay. I will never forget that, because we had at least the opportunity to flee. So yeah, the people working there, the cooks, cleaning people, they're like, yeah, get out, run for your life. But some of the Secret Service, they had to stay and protect the White House as well as they could. And they were like, if any of us survive, you have to go to our next center. Can you imagine being told you have to stay in a building where they think a plane is about to fly into? Terrifying. And then we see this one guy who is, I think FBI or something with national security. And he's just walking around and he's like, I think I'm the only one in the West Wing. And it's just so scary, just imagining the White House empty. Now, I know obviously the president's not there every day, but you have to think, as I said, the cleaning people, all those kind of people, they're there every day. But when all those people are gone, I'm just imagining like all you can hear, pin drop, like scary. And this is something I hadn't realized, is there had never been a situation where hijackers ever flew the plane. This was the first time. I had never realized that. Usually they just put like a gun to the pilot's head being like, take me to whatever city. Yeah, I never knew this was like the first time, and maybe only time now at this point, where the hijackers actually were flying the planes. Like, that's crazy. I would have thought that had happened before, because, you know, back in like the 70s and all, that's when they first heard about the hijackings, everyone was like, okay, they usually land and bargain with money and all of that. Like, they don't go destroy the plane and kill everybody. They don't have a suicide mission. So that is where we're at. The Pentagon just got hit in the book. Again, about a quarter of the way in almost. And that was my day in reading. Like, every time I have to let out a breath and be like, whoa. Let's talk about the White Queen, shall we? I'm going to tell y'all what this book is about now. The White Queen is the story of Elizabeth Woodville, a woman of extraordinary beauty and ambition, who secretly marries the newly crowned Edward IV. Elizabeth rises to the demands of her exalted position and fights for her family's dominance. But despite her best efforts, her two sons become pawns in a famous unsolved mystery that we read about earlier this year that has confounded historians for centuries: the lost princes in the Tower of London. In this dazzling account of the deadly wars of the roses, brother turns on brother to win the ultimate prize, the throne of England. I will be starting this after I take my bath. So with the Stranger Things rewatch, I started season 3 today. My biggest fears in this season: rats, mice. We do not like them. They scare me. I literally pray every night that there's none in my room. And my other thoughts, I love the opening mall sequence. Chef kiss. I love a good mall. Love a mall. It just takes me back to my youth when I was like their age, but it was in the 2010s, not the 80s. Going back to the 80s, I love an 80s summertime. The music, the fashion. Hey guys, it is Tuesday. It's time for the nightly update. And for the Only Plane in the Sky, I am about a third of the way into the book. I'm at 32%. I read 44 pages today. Let me get the notes up. I realized I had so many notes just like on the first pages. It sounded like he was chewing on something, but okay. We start with the Pentagon getting hit, and I didn't realize, so the Pentagon is home to a daily population of workers and visitors of around 35,000. To give y'all a reference, that is like like when I was growing up, that was the size of my hometown. We're like now at 46,000. So like, I'm just imagining like the majority of my city were in this building. Like, I can't comprehend that many people being in a building. But then, yeah, think of like the World Trade Center. How many people were in there? The casinos in Las Vegas, they have so many people in them. Like, yeah, it's a lot. And going on the same page, I'd say not more than 60 seconds to 2 minutes later, there was a report on the news saying that the Pentagon had been rocked by an explosion. Obviously, we all turned and looked at each other because we were in the Pentagon. Next, so that has me wondering, I'm like, this is interesting because in the tower, even if you were like floors below the impact zone, people were thrown, like I'm sitting at my desk right now, people were thrown out their desks, thrown across the room. Like, it was, several people compared it to an earthquake feeling. You're just being thrown all over the place. I'm like, in the Pentagon, they didn't, but the Pentagon is, so a Pentagon is 5 sides, you know, it's 5 stories high, and then there's like 5 sections like going inward. And it is also, well, yeah, obviously it's the only building I've seen out of these in person. But then I was like, okay, yeah, people have seen the World Trade Center. It's not that, you know, like my dad and my grandma have both been inside the World Trade Centers. But okay, so I was just kind of shocked that they didn't even realize the building they were in had been hit. But moving on. We have Sheila Denise Moody, and I'm sorry I didn't highlight everybody's names. I didn't know if, because sometimes if it's in bold, oh, it's like a link, a hyperlink, and I try to avoid doing those, but yeah, so I'm sorry for not everybody. I don't have their names listed. So, but Sheila Denise Moody said, a burst of hot air hit my face. The burst was so strong. It had so much force that it forced me to close my eyes. When I opened my eyes, there was a ball of fire shooting right to the right of me. I was in shock. The building was shaking. There was debris. Things were falling from the ceiling. The ceiling opened. So yeah, if you were, I guess, in the impact zone or closer to the impact zone, it really just depended where you were in the building. They were working for like a military contractors. And then the other woman she was with, it was both literally like their first day there. I'm not even exaggerating. It was their first day there. So we have this lady, she's going to the fax machine just to, you know, do faxes. And at first she thought she blew up the fax machine. And she's like, oh my gosh, what did I do? But, and I kind of laughed at that. But this is the second time there's been somebody like in that situation. So in the Twin Towers, or in one of the towers, there was the like art commission of the city had where they were mainly like photographers and all who were doing art in the towers, but like of the view at the skyline and everything. So her name is Vanessa, and she was like, oh my gosh, did I put my bag too close to an outlet or something? Did I cause this? So some people who were thinking that they were the reason behind this, but obviously they were not. And then this is another one of inside. Yeah, I have not heard that many stories of inside the Pentagon or just Pentagon stories, because one, that's in Virginia, but like the DC area isn't as populated as New York City. And then just being the government, like, you know, it's a lot more of a confidential area, the Pentagon is. Like, when I went there, you're not supposed to be recording things. Like, it's very, very strict. Even if you're just outside, you're not allowed to take pictures of it. But okay, so this quote, it was a loud roar. The building literally shook. And there was a sucking sound, which I believe was the oxygen escaping as the jet fuel poured into the corridors right down the hall from us and ignited, taking all of the oxygen out of the air. Like, I do not understand that, because there was also bits about the air pressure in the towers of like, people were scared they would get ripped off the building, which I'm sure that probably did happen. Like, I can't comprehend that. So my only best guess is, you know, one time when I was a kid, I got hit in the back with a soccer ball and that knocked the breath out of me. So that's my only guess, is these buildings are getting hit and that's just knocking the air out of the buildings. I guess. Oh, Freddie scared me. I didn't know he was right there when I put my hand down. So that was also in the Twin Towers as well. And going back to, what was her name? Sheila? Yeah, Sheila. I forgot that it cut off some of her paragraph, that when the ceiling, you know, opened up, all this liquid came down on her, and she still doesn't know to this day what that was. And I'm like, was it fuel? Was it? I don't know. But then we have our Flight 93 chapter. And when Izzy is going over the voicemails that people, you know, they were calling their families, whoever didn't pick up, and just them saying their goodbyes and their last I love yous, like, oh my gosh. Because, I mean, they knew on that plane, like, what was going on, because they had communication with people on the ground and obviously all the others, because this flight had been delayed. Like, I think they had to wait on the taxiway for like 41 minutes. So yeah, it's rough. With the Pentagon, a lot of them thought it was a truck bombing or just, you know, some kind of bombing like OKC, something like that. It didn't occur to them that it was another airliner. And I was just thinking that, like, when I was reading it, I was like, how do they not, like, realize that this is an airliner? Like, why are they all thinking it's a bomb? But it's just, you never are like, oh, that could be us, you know? We're back to Flight 93. But yeah, we have Todd Beamer from Cranberry, New Jersey, and he is an icon. But okay, now we are, and this was a long chapter on the World Trade Center evacuation. It's like a horror movie. You talked about with Hurricane Katrina and Salvage the Bones. It's like a horror. Like, they said the lobby was all just ash, and then there was water from the sprinklers, you know, and that was flooding the place. Like, I think it said it went up to your calves. Like, oh. So this was the north, so on the first page of the chapter, the North Tower ground floor lobby. I think we knew less of what was going on than the people outside or in the street or the people watching TV. And I was wondering that too, because I was like, do all these firefighters and, you know, first responders, do they know that this is a large scale attack, that other, like, DC has been hit? And obviously they didn't know about Flight 93 yet, because at this stage that hadn't happened yet. So no, they didn't know. They were like, the closer you were to the towers, the less you knew about the situation. This is a quote that I highlighted. Okay, then we spent a couple seconds looking at each other with a real feeling of concern for each other. Then he knew what he had to do. I watched him walk away, and that was the last time I saw him. So these were these two brothers who were firefighters, and they, you know, the one who was talking here, he gave the game plan, because that's what they were doing when these new firefighters were coming in the building, you know, more and more. They gave them the game plan of everything that was going on. And these two brothers, both firefighters, last time seeing each other. And I didn't know anything about this. So on one of the calls to, like, you know, the first responders that are coming in, they're like, grab your weapons, because we're getting word that they're shooting civilians as they're running out the building. I was like, what? I've never heard about this. I've never heard that that was a rumor or if it was actually happening. And so here's the quote. It winds up, it was police officers who were shooting out the windows so more people could run out faster. There were shots fired, but by good guys, not bad guys. So I had never heard about that before. This is a quote. Okay, yeah, this guy who, again, a first responder. So when people were coming out the towers, they were really, like, disoriented. They were like, oh my gosh, we made it out of there. What do we do now? So this guy, he's like, come over here, come over here. And when they're coming to him, debris comes and kills. It says, and with that, debris came down and killed all of them. Like a handful of people. There was debris coming off the buildings that was like the size of school buses, like huge. And this was somebody who was a victim, you know, coming down the stairs. While I was walking down, they were going up to their deaths. And while I was walking down to live, I will never forget this. And that's just these firefighters. I cannot imagine. And there was another section, I didn't mark this, but with the security guards, who a lot of them, like, you know, before this event, they would joke around being like, oh, what would you do if you saw dead bodies everywhere? Like, if there was a catastrophe, what would you do? And a lot of them were like, we would run. Not a single one did on 9/11. They stayed and helped when that is way above their pay grade, as the book said. And just seeing people come together, it's amazing, even though it's, you know, awful circumstances. And then this guy, it says, ultimately, even 11 Morgan Stanley staff out of more than 2,700 in the South Tower died on September 11th. Rescorla and two of his fellow security personnel were among those 11. So he was a man who was some kind of British, basically, like, I don't know if he was MI6 or something like that, but, and then did duty in Vietnam. And he was like, because at the South Tower at first, after the North Tower got hit, they were like, we're fine, that's not our tower, you do not need to evacuate. That's what they were saying over the PA system. But he was like, no, I was here in 93, I am getting my people out of here. And you just saw only 11 out of 2,700 didn't make it, and he was one of them. Like, he went down with the ship. And this is something that I never thought about. So I did see one jumper actually hit a fireman on the corner near Vesey and West. I later found out that the fireman was Danny Suhr, S-U-H-R. He played for the fire department football team. I coach our team and I've played, so I knew Danny. He was one of the first firemen to get killed. Yeah, I never thought of a jumper from their impact hitting another person. And lastly, we have Rudy Giuliani is one of his media people, and she sees somebody recording the jumpers, and you know, she knows it's against the First Amendment. She's like, I'm not supposed to tell them what they can record and not record, but she really wanted to put her hand out in front of the camera and be like, don't record that. These people are in their most intimate moments. But then she stood back and was like, no, this has to be recorded for history. And yeah, I'm somebody who, I do not watch the jumper videos. Like, no, again, oh, sorry for the stomach girl. It's because I want to give those people that moment, that, as she was saying, that's so intimate, and I don't think, yeah, I don't want to see that. And there was something similar, people who were evacuating the Capitol, and I think this was one of the senators or whoever, representatives, who he saw a man set up a camera because they thought, you know, the Capitol, the dome of the Capitol would be one of the targets. And he sent up the camera, and the guy's just thinking in his head, he's like, it doesn't say, but like thinking, why do you want to get the perfect shot of this? And I think this quote goes again perfectly. No, this has got to be recorded for history. And that is everything for the only plane in the sky today. I talked 13 minutes, about 44 pages. I have gotten to a little over the halfway point in Beheld, and it's still given 2-star vibes. This one is literally just doing absolutely nothing for me. Like, the positives are hold on, have I put the bookmark in the right place? I haven't. But my favorite parts have been learning about the Puritans, the Pilgrims, if you will, and their culture, because I just knew the very basics. I didn't know, like, the class system, the caste system, if you will, that they had there, and just how they perceived religion. I didn't know anything about that. So that's been a positive. And then the writing has been a positive, as well as it is reflective and poetic, as it makes me think a lot. But my other notes are, first husband, like, I wasn't expecting that Alice had been married before, and it's just little nuggets that we learn each step along the way. And I mean, this is technically, it's listed as historical fiction, but it's like a murder, a crime kind of story that takes place in the 1600s. Now, something that I think is very interesting and different about this book is our main character, who I would say is Dorothy, we do not get the point of view of. At least so far, we haven't had the POV of. And I would love to know other people's takes on that. Like, who do you think the main character of this is? I would say Alice is definitely who we hear from the most, but I think all these stories are ultimately circling around Dorothy, and that has me wondering, is the crime the murder of Dorothy? I have no idea if she was murdered, but I'm just thinking that's where I think this is going to go, at the halfway point. And for other books that this reminds me of, now I don't think this is as good as these two that I'm about to make comparisons to, but maybe if you like those, you might like this one, Northwoods by Daniel Mason, because that book starts out, it's actually, you might be able to see it in the back, but that book starts out with Puritans and two of them like breaking away from the society and running away to go live their own lives. So same kind of setting and similar characters. Next is Maggie O'Farrell. Just the historical, the atmosphere, the vibe. It is definitely not as overridden as Maggie O'Farrell, but this does remind me kind of of Hamnet and The Marriage Portrait, which you might also be able to see back there. Those are the books that this reminds me of. So I do really like the historical aspects of it, but I'm bored. I feel like nothing is happening. And yeah, I'm just not really feeling a lot towards this book. It's not doing a whole lot for me plot-wise. For the nightly update, shout out to my new pillow back there. I bought the pillow and forgot to buy pillowcases. I might have some around the house, but I wanted to get new silk ones, so that's for next week. It's Wednesday, November 19th. And fun thing that happened today, so y'all know I feed the stray cats. So there's this one who comes who isn't a stray, and because he has a collar and you know, he has tags on, and I call him dog tags because one is shaped like a bone, and I think that's funny. A cat has a bone shaped one. So he happened to come early today because he usually comes around like 1 in the morning, and it's not every day like that. He came the other day, and he's one we see every few months. But today he was here at around like 6:30, and he was very friendly, meowing, and his name is Charlie because I was able to see his tag. So, and it had where he lives and all. So I know where he belongs now and all of that. So he's not far from home or anything like that, just one of a few houses down. So he was a very nice young man, so shout out to his owners. But we read 43 pages in The Only Plane in the Sky. Get me to 42%, 43 pages, 42%. That's kind of satisfying if you ask me. So I'm reading about 10% a day in here, which is typical when I read a book that's, this one's not quite 500 pages. It is somewhere in the 400 range, but usually when a book is around 500 pages, that's how long it takes me. I'm pulling up the notes on my Kindle. My Kindle does not let me bookmark anymore. Like, you used to click right here and it would bookmark the page. Mine doesn't do that. I don't know why it had that glitch recently. I can still annotate and everything, but I'm always like, oh, please know what page I'm on. Okay, I started the day on chapter 22. Sorry, I could not remember where I started, and this chapter is on the people who jumped, and we kind of talked about that. Yeah, oh no, that was yesterday's, my bad. I looked ahead. On this one we have evacuating the towers and the collapse of the South Tower, and we are again getting those phone calls from those people who are entrapped, who are in those very high levels, who can't get below the fire, who they perish in the collapse or they jump. And just hearing the phone calls with their loved ones, oh my gosh, I was about to cry. I was outside. I was like, this is hitting. It's, I can't imagine. Like, there was this one couple, and till like up until the very end, they were just like, I love you, I love you, I love you, like just saying it. And I can't imagine wanting to cause this destruction, like the people behind the attack. No, I'm getting emotional thinking about it. I cannot comprehend that, which is a good thing that I can comprehend that. I don't understand. And okay, this quote, we were the lucky of the unlucky to have those last words, so they were able to talk on the phone to the loved ones. And that's something I always think about, like in my own life, like everybody, I'm not gonna say, but like in my adult life, everybody I love that has passed away, I've had the opportunity, like all of them, my last words have been I love you to all of them, and that is just very lucky, even though it's in an awful situation. But I am really thankful that I had that opportunity, you know. So with this one company, there was this man, Harry Ramos, and he almost made it out, but there was like this very obese man who was on the steps, and I'll explain more about who they are in a minute, who he was sitting on the steps, and he was just like, I can't do it anymore. This is all I've got. So fireman was like, no, we're getting you up. And Harry Ramos, he was like, no, we're getting you out of here. We are not going to leave you. So, because there were several, Harry and some of the other guys, yeah, with some of his coworkers, and the firemen were just like, go, go, go. And the coworkers were like, Harry, we got to get out of here. So Harry was like, no, I'm not leaving this man all by himself. So that they get up, they go, and they stop again, and they didn't make it out. But the man, Harry Ramos, waited with Victor Wald, a 49-year-old New York stockbroker with Avalon Partners and father of two. Wald had only started working at Avalon in late August. Later, Ramos's and Wald's families would request that their names be placed together on the 9/11 memorial. So the selflessness, like, I hope I said that right, when you're not selfish, of others, it's amazing. Look, nobody's coming, nobody is coming for us. Yeah, so this was at the Marriott Hotel that's was between the two towers. And after that first collapse, this man blanking on the name, sorry. He gets out of his hotel room. There's like nothing there. When he walks into the hallway, he walks to the end and he hears somebody else, and it's a firefighter. So the firefighter, it's like, go to the stairs, go to the room down there, and that will take you to the outer stairs. They get there and they get to the third flight, like the third landing, and it's just impassable, and there were bodies. And he was like, okay, we had to step out of the building, just on like a piece of metal, essentially, again 3 stories up, walk around that to get back onto the stairs. And so the firefighter was like, look, nobody's coming, nobody is coming for us. Any of the firemen or rescue people who are tasked at getting people out of the building, they are dead. If they're in the street, they're dead. If they were in the buildings, they're dead. Nobody is coming to get us. We have to get out on our own. I cannot imagine that mindset. We also have this woman who was working, who, you know, was evacuating. So we started off the ramp to the Brooklyn Bridge, but then I saw all those fighter planes because they were scrambled. I didn't know if they were ours or not. I said to Denise, we can't go on a bridge. We can't go on a landmark. I really thought the planes belonged to somebody other than us, and we turned to get off the bridge. So yeah, they thought, this is like War of the Worlds. Like somebody else said that. I don't know if it was Katie Couric, somebody. But that is what this feels like. Just seeing ground zero. This is horror, especially the one I told you about, the guy in the hotel. This is so apocalyptic. And just when the building collapsed and we had, you know, like the traffic helicopters they were like, Lower Manhattan was just covered, like, and if I was in that situation, I'd be like, yeah, we just got nuked or something, like, oh. Because nobody thought that the buildings would collapse. They thought it was just going to, you know, the fire was going to burn, and I mean, they thought the firefighters would get it out, all of that, but no, it collapsed, and just nobody saw that coming. And this is when somebody was like on the news, I think this guy was with CNN. It was like silent. So saying some people in the air, they just talk too much. But in this instance, silence. Silence or natural sound on occasion is infinitely more powerful and relevant than talking, and so true. And then we have the 4th crash, which is United 93. And this is in rural Pennsylvania, you know, small town. I mean, it crashed in a field. But all those people in that town, they were probably like, oh my gosh, what is happening? Because it sounded like a missile. Was just such a loud noise coming, you know, down nosedive. Yeah, I would be like, it's a nuke. I would think that, because we had all the attacks, you know, New York and DC, I'd be like, why are they coming for Pennsylvania? Like, what is happening here? Like, I would just think we're being straight up nuked. I cannot imagine. Like, part of me is glad that I was, you know, a child when this was happening, so I didn't understand really the extent of everything that was happening. But yeah, I cannot imagine this happened today. I can imagine if I was an adult when this happened. But yeah, those scenes of New York after the collapse, just horror. The lighting is not going to be great because I didn't expect to get to 75% in Beheld tonight. I only took one note, and that is that none of the men are likable. But it's not in a bad way, because I do think all these characters are well written, but I don't really feel anything towards them. I don't have strong emotions towards them. So there's that. I have had like a sinus headache all day. Bright. I've not had lights on in hours. It's Thursday, the 20th? I think it's the 20th? Yeah, it's the 20th. Okay, prematurely started filming this because I want to get that clip. So I'm sorry if I'm chaotic, if I have food on my face, my hair I have not brushed today. Yeah, one thing about like seasons like fall and spring, which are my favorite seasons, but where I live, the temperature is like a roller coaster, and the pressure in the air and that, the sinuses, it hurts to touch, but they are so annoying. My nose was just so stuffy this morning. and just feel like my head's gonna blow up. Like, it is just so aggravating. So hopefully the weather makes up its mind on how it wants to be, but I got to page 225 today. Oh, I have some pictures to look at, but 225, let's get to that mark. So that is a little over the halfway point. I have about 200 pages left in the book. It's 425 pages in total, so yeah, 200 exactly. Why did I take out this paper? That's so I knew that this was the highest rated one on the TBR. But okay, yeah, so our next chapter will be escaping the Pentagon. And there's what that looks like. I need to get the notes open on my Kindle, and I found the dark mode, how to turn on dark mode. You do up here, and literally all you have to do is press that button. So it's very helpful because as I said, I've had a headache and I didn't want to be looking at a bright screen. So let's go to the notes. We started on page 181 for reference for when I'm going through this list. Nonfiction books, I mean, you always find somebody who is such a great character, and I'm like, I need a book just on that person. And in this is Father Michael Judge. So he was one of the fire department of New York's 6 chaplains, a gregarious, gay, recovering alcoholic Irishman, known throughout the city for ministering to firefighters, the homeless, and AIDS victims. He had been in the fire department. He had been a fire department chaplain since 1992 and had responded to numerous emergencies, including the 1996 crash of a TWA flight in Suffolk County, which I'm going to have to remind myself which plane crash that was because I am not remembering, but I'm sure I've probably watched a documentary on it. But all of that, doesn't he sound like when you think of a Catholic father, you probably don't think of all those words that were used to describe him. So I thought he was such a character, and then we do get a quote, so I'm like, okay, good, he's alive. But no, he was technically the first casualty of the event because he was like the first that they legally, wrote down as the first death. And this Craig Monahan, who is or was, I don't know if he still is, but firefighter on Ladder 5, he said, I think he wouldn't have had it any other way. It was as if he took the lead. All those angels right through Heaven's Gate. That's what it seemed like to us. If any of those guys were confused on the way up, he was there to ease the transition from this life to the next. That is how it's supposed to be with religion. Oh yeah, this was Joseph Pfeiffer, who was a chief in Battalion 1, the one who I talked about earlier, who his brother was also a firefighter. So he's just walking north on West Street, walking through the blackness of downtown. I realized my brother was gone and hundreds of firefighters were gone. All I could think about was how much we really used to love working downtown, and all the times they would talk on the phone or at work parties just about how much they loved that job. And I mean, it breaks your heart. And this is a popular quote coming from Frederick Turner, who was a Holocaust survivor and a Brooklyn resident. As ashes were falling, I was back in Auschwitz with ashes coming down. In Auschwitz, I knew what the ashes were. Here, I assumed I knew what the ashes were. It was a building and human remains. Now we have chapter 32, which is the rescue at Shanksville. So this is where United 93 crashed. That is the one where the passengers took control of the plane and crashed it into a rural area so it wouldn't hit its determined target to kill less people crashing in a rural area, And this one is from, I don't remember if he's chief of police, but he's, he was basically the head of the scene. He said, people are coming to me saying, what do we do? What do you want us to do? There wasn't anything to do. And I looked up Shanksville, so I don't know what the population was in 2001, but today in 2025, it's 199 people. Literally so small. I don't know any towns in my area that are quite that small. We all have like at least 1,000 people. And this one, I'm like, yeah, that, because I was thinking, okay, this happened here, God forbid, like, we don't want anything like that to happen. I don't think, like, props to our first responders, shout out to them. They're great people. But I don't even know how you could handle a situation like that. Like, when I think these big situations, I'm like, you need the FBI, you need the NTSB, you need all these people. like for just a small town, especially when this small of Shanksville, what do you do? I don't know. So then we have a school in Arlington, which if you don't know, the Pentagon, it's the Pentagon in Arlington. Marquise, you'll know. I don't know if it's technically in Arlington itself, but it's in that part of DC, Northern Virginia. I said that part of DC. It's in the DMV, but okay. So people didn't need to sit around all morning and watch these horrible events. So that was one of the principals at the school, because he told the teachers, he's like, turn off the TVs. Because that quote, and that is so true, and I'm really bad about this. When there's a bad event, a shooting, a plane crash, a storm, whatever, I have to doom scroll. I have to be refreshing. Twitter is the one that, like, I know Twitter is a scary place, let me tell you, but that's where I feel like information gets out the fastest. So I will just be refreshing, then I'll go to Reddit where there's a mega thread of the event, and I have to refresh. I want to see everything, I want to know everything that's happening. That is not good. That is not good for your mind, but I do it. So shout out to that guy who, even back then, because in 2001, I mean, these things, smartphones, cell phones existed, but smartphones, they did not exist. And the internet, the computer's right behind me, it was not what it is today. So back then, I mean, a lot easier to cut off. But yeah, and like, 2012 for me personally, maybe a little earlier, is when doom scrolling began. And oh my gosh, I'm sorry about my nose, it's so annoying, my sinuses. But I think I'm going to end the vlog here, because I do have Thursday night football. I actually don't know what time the game starts, probably something like 8:15 or something, so I have about an hour. But and I don't think I'll get to a spot in Beheld of where I will update you, because my next update would be the end of the book, and I don't think I'll be finishing the book today. I might, you never know. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you made it all the way through, leave like a Thanksgiving food fall emoji in the comments below. And as always, comment, rate, and subscribe. And don't forget to ring that notification bell to be notified when all my videos go live. And I just realized I'm wearing my NFL shirt for the Bills. Go Bills! Because that's who plays today. But I'll see you on my next one. Bye!